to it after.
Hey Sheila, you ready? Call this meeting to order, Southern Shores Planning Board, Monday, May 20th, 2024. If you will please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just quickly, Robert McClendon's going to be about 10 minutes late, he said, so we're starting on time, and Michael Zenner is going to be the voting member. Robert will still have his seat and participate, but Michael will be the voting member tonight. Okay, approval of agenda. Can we get a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for May 20th, 2024 for the planning board.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Approval of the minutes. We got those in front of us?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I just
Corrections.
Yeah, I had a couple. On page 3, line 88, just define what a building setback, I think the lot maybe need to be struck.
Mhm.
And then the same page, line 110, planning board member Zahner stated you can used. I think it should be just use and no comma. And then page 5, line 183, 184, almost equidistance and where they're set back, the lots are approximately consistent. And then page 10, line 425, planning board member Zahner stated that this is challenging. And then line 436, there's a achieve, just make it achieved. And that's it.
Others? Well, for some reason, I don't get numbers. I mean, the line numbers. I was looking at it on my tablet. So. Anyway, if you'll humor me, I just wrote down the page number. On the second page, paragraph 2, I believe. Let's see. Oh, that would be line 44, planning board member blank. It needs to be who that planning board member was. Hey, Ron. Sorry. Michael's going to be the voting member, but okay. Participate.
That's no problem with me.
Okay, so on line 44, planning board member, whoever that was, needs to be clarified. Then on page 3, let's see how I can find this. There was somewhere that had standalone was all one word, standalone lots. Where would that be? Paragraph 3. I'm not seeing it now. Man, this thing's in way different format than my tablet. Does anybody see the phrase standalone lots in there. Okay, well, we'll move on. Page 6 was another area that had a planning board member, I think. Yeah, I'm way out here as far as how this jives with how I was making these corrections off of my tablet last night. Okay.
There's a few of those. It's on page 9. There's one on page 9. Line 368.
Page 9, Michael. Yeah, there you go. Planning board member in line 368. And then there was something about planning board member ward. The word should have been amenable. And it was amenable or something. It was a typo.
Line 395, page 9.
There you go.
Separately.
Yeah, I had that on page 10 of my tablet, so I'm out of whack here. There was another one that it was supposed to be set back, and it was set bike. It was just a typo. I've got it. Top sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. 224. Set bike, and it should be set back, line 224. Okay, that's good enough for me. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, well, I'll move that we accept the minutes with corrections for planning board meeting March 18th, 2024. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tony. All in favor of approving? Say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. Okay. When y'all pulled these minutes up, did you have the columns numbered?
No.
Did you, anybody? I mean, I downloaded it.
I just pick up the packet.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't pick the packet up. I've had that trouble before, where it doesn't show the numbers when I'm loading
I think
from Word to
if I were
PDF.
to, if we were to do it as a PDF and send it to you, I think you'd be able to see that.
Let's try to do that next time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the agenda, public comment. Anyone from the public out there wish to speak? None seen. No public comment. Old business. Wes, I'm going to get you to give us a brief synopsis of what we're looking at with this tonight.
Yes, sir.
If you
Thank
please.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've made based on feedback that we received from the planning board at the April 15th planning board meeting. We made some revisions to propose ZTA 2403, which address commercial design standards. And I can just go through those really quickly. Starting on page 2 of 6. On line 34F, reduction of required parking for providing trees. You all provided some comments on, make sure the trees are shade trees, they're in the parking area. How high do they need to be? So you can see the changes there. Each shade tree that is planted shall reach a height of 6 feet in 3 years. Suitable tree types be those recommended for the coastal area by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Those two statements come from the landscaping requirements in the town code. So that's similar language. So there's consistency there. The next change was on page 3 with respect to sketch plan review. The previous language said that, or suggested that an applicant may submit an application to you all for a sketch plan review. You all requested it be say shall. So that has been changed. And then we changed 7 days prior to regular scheduled planning board meeting to 14 days. Also on page 3, number 1, paint colors shall be subtle, neutral, and earth tone colors. I don't recall what the word was, but we took out one of the words that was at the beginning of that statement, so that it just says subtle, neutral, and earth tone colors. I think there were some questions and uncertainty about what the other term was. And then we also, on page 4, revised number 8, so that it just states architectural embellishments with a coastal design that add visual interest are encouraged. And that concludes the changes that have been made based on the feedback you all provided. And we can talk about this, I guess, separately, but we also in the staff report put together a table that shows ratios of building area and finished area to land area. So,
Can I hop in here, Wes?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Can you tell the board where that originated from?
yes, sir. So Chairperson Ward, myself, and board member Michael Zenner, we met last week. And I think the interest was sparked when there was the Saga application. And Mr. Zenner had brought up at one of the meetings what the volume and what the differences in volume with the marketplace and with what y'all were considering at the time. So Chairperson Ward wanted to discuss that further. So we met last week, and then I put together some of these examples by taking Taco Bell, Southern Shores Crossing, Town Bank, and Marketplace, putting together the building areas, finished areas, land areas, and then dividing the land area into the building area and finished area to get a building area and land finished area ratio. The building area is the footprint of the building, like shown on a site plan survey. And then the finished area, of course, is the living space, heated living space area.
Thank you, Wes.
Wes, let me ask a question before we're on. Why are the parking spaces 6 inches narrower?
So this is actually a 160D requirement. They put into the legislature, put into the general statutes that municipalities cannot have parking spaces any greater than 18 feet length and width of 9 feet.
While we're talking about that, this is just a general question, curiosity. Is there any regulation that says it has to be angle or straight?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
So that's up to the builder or the designer to do that.
Yes, well,
Fine.
they would come up with that based on how many spaces are required, lot coverage they have available, et cetera.
Okay.
160D, that lot size, or the parking space size, that's only commercial, right?
Yeah, this is going to apply to anything.
I don't believe so.
I thought it said
I have a question too, and I know we talked about that, about giving preference, to adding trees. The only thing is when I reread through this, it bothered me in the sense that we're saying the height of 6 feet in 3 years. Number one, who's going to go check it in 3 years? What happens if the tree dies before three years? Why don't we just say the shade tree is planted shall be 6 feet? In other words, they're going to plant a 6-foot tree and that's it, and they take care of it. nobody's going to check it in 3 years. And a 6-foot tree isn't real big. It's not a 12-foot tree. And nobody's going to go measure and say, oh, well, it didn't grow 6 feet in 3 years. To me, let's make it simple, stupid.
I could comment on that. I think usually what I see is that it's of a species that would reach that height within 3 years. So maybe that clarification, but.
I would agree. And Mr. McClendon, I bought you, for uses other than single family and two family.
Let's circle back to
Okay.
what you're talking about. I would like to just go ahead and all the whereases are on the first page. We know about them, but let's look at, we've just talked about the parking requirements on, in section 36, 163. Wes just explained about the 160D requirement for, the minimum width and length. So not much we can do there. The next line, minimum parking requirements, there's no change. Anything in there out of 160D, Wes, in number 4?
No, sir.
Okay. That's currently in the ordinance.
Yes, that is existing
Yeah.
language. The only 160D change found on this ZTA is the changing the 9 1/2 feet to 9 feet.
Yeah. Okay. So moving down to 4F, would be, your concern, Jan, as far as, the reduction, of parking spaces. So what might we do? I mean, I understand what Michael's saying. It's just a species that would reach that height. I mean, nobody's going to go out and measure it, but I mean, if you put a, little dwarf nandina out there versus something else that is recommended by the Department of Agriculture for coastal areas, then I guess it would have to be in that species that would reach 6 feet in 3 years.
I'd say put it out at 6 feet. It's not hard to come by.
Right.
Right, yeah.
I don't disagree. I mean, what we're doing is we're offering something, saying, you can
Mhm.
reduce your parking requirement by planting a tree.
Yeah.
And
So,
so it's their choice. So go ahead and buy a 6-foot tree.
start it out at 6, make that the starting point.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well, I think in proportion to the building, the 6-foot's going to look a lot better than one that's 3 feet that the nursery says is going to double,
Yeah.
the 6 feet in 3 years. I mean, start at 6 and let it get taller and bushier and
Mhm.
complement what we're,
Yeah.
the development.
And the live oaks that are down along East Dogwood Trail are a prime example. When Ed and I were on the civic board 100 years ago, those things were, they were maybe shoulder high. And look how big they are now. But we would have to designate that it needs to keep growing. It doesn't need to stop at 6 feet. So,
Also in that same aspect, are we concerned at what the island that they'll be planted in? Should that be a minimum? In other words, in them putting a tree in a small island, the roots will mess up everything very shortly. But should we have like a 5-foot island that they be planted within a 5-foot island? Just something to talk about, rather than just saying the tree. It
so it
should
may be more than one tree
Yeah,
in an island too, though.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I would think that would just have to be left up to the development. I mean, they're going to get credit for, parking spaces for using a shade tree. I'm assuming that if they use 2 shade trees, would they double their credit? I mean,
Well, it's up to 5.
Up to 5.
It's up to 5, yeah.
Michael, do you have any experience with specifying, most shopping centers, they just build up a big curb as opposed to having an inlet and having, water drain in that direction. So the trees aren't, and vegetation isn't up on an island. It's actually, receiving
Receiving.
stormwater with an overdrain that then drains out, or a riser, I
Yeah.
guess. That would then drain the stormwater system.
That's what we had over there at the marketplace,
Mhm.
and that tree
Yes,
thing that they took out.
Yeah.
That was all that
I know.
parking area drained down to the
drained.
Yeah.
little park, and then
Yeah.
There's a riser.
Usually it's a low impact development technique, to have no curb and have it as a rain garden essentially.
I mean, you can have curves, or you can have stops, and
Inlets, yeah.
yes,
right.
have an inlet. I know for safety, a lot of engineers like the curves, especially around curves and, traffic pattern areas. But then having inlets, having, pieces cut out of them. We did that, curved up at YMCA at one point.
Yeah, usually when you have them without curbs, you have wheel stops.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do it with inlets as well.
Now, I'm not sure how far we should go to micromanage what a developer would do. I mean, we could kind of grab hold of that at site plan review.
Yeah, there's a sketch plan.
I mean,
That
yeah,
is-
not sketch plan review,
Yeah.
not site plan, yeah.
so if that, low impact, technique, we should put that in the text. We encourage, at least, that type of
Sticking that up
engineering.
front instead of surprising them at a site plan review. We don't have to dictate specifically how they need to build it, but encourage them to use low impact development techniques for managing stormwater,
Yeah.
losing vegetation.
Should,
Would we want to put that in under the the sketch plan review?
under the design
Clause.
standards?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's probably better there.
But I mean, it's still, if we're saying encouraged, you're hoping.
You're hoping.
It isn't shall or may, it's hopefully.
Yeah, but
We encourage you, but I mean, at the same time, if there's language in there that's not binding, it still shows our intent. I think that's where it needs to go.
I don't disagree about the placement of it, but I mean, we only have such minimal commercial areas that we're defining what the town looks like
Hmm.
in these little, in these just very few spots. And so if we said that they should use low impact development techniques to, in their stormwater management, and couple that with their vegetative planting plan, we can review that,
Mhm.
decide whether it meets our
Yeah.
standard.
Wes, do we cover stormwater management elsewhere in the town code?
General provisions, lot disturbance and stormwater management.
That may be something to
And we
revisit.
did mention low impact development in that example.
Well, are we of the opinion that item F outside of, what it says is the same language about reduction of required parking for providing trees. We're striking we're striking the tree terminology. And so basically a tree that is planted shall be a minimum of 6 feet in height at
At the time of planting.
installment or something along those lines. Is
Yeah.
everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I've suggested, each shade tree that is planted shall be a minimum of 6 feet in height when planted.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Part 2, section 3657, over the definitions of specific terms and words. So that substantial improvement would be an additional definition that would come into play. And that's pretty much the way it was when we initially started.
Yeah, it comes from the flood damage prevention ordinance, which comes from FEMA language.
Yeah, okay. But that's a pretty long definition with item 1 and 2 under it. Any heartburn about the language there? Okay. Then moving on to part 3, section 36-179, which is, if you look on the Muni Code, that is the start of the reserved section. This commercial design standard 36-179 falls in right after 36-178, which is manufactured homes. I mean, it seems like it's kind of in an odd spot, but where else are you going to put it? Just as long as it's in there, but that's where commercial design standards would go, would be create a new section that's currently reserved. So, sketch plan review. Jan, you had started the ball rolling for this a while back. What are your feelings on the language that we're looking at?
No, I think it states what we want and it's good.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, just that change saying that the applicant shall, I mean, we're not asking for a site plan, it's a sketch plan.
Right.
And I think we could circumvent a lot of angst going into a site plan review if the town required that. I think it's an excellent ask for the town to do that in any commercial
It
design.
gets dialogue going in the conceptual idea of what we want,
Mhm.
the commercial areas to
Gives you
look like.
information.
And that they are a fair representation of what Southern Shores
Mhm.
is.
And we have give and take at a early stage
Exactly.
that is on the record.
Well, and I'll tell you too, that it helps with a reluctance to go back to your designer and pay all the costs of having to redo an engineered plan.
I mean, we went through 3 months of that. We know. Okay, so we've got shall in there and we'd switch from into 14 days. Anybody else have anything under sketch plan review that we need to talk about? All right, then item B, it says generally in the general commercial district for all uses. And then it gets into the standards that we've been talking about. These are pulled from Duck, Kitty Hawk, or Kiddo Hills.
Nags Head.
and Nags Head. Yeah.
A question there. Why is the word general in there? Why not in the commercial district? What? Is there,
C general commercial district is how it's labeled, isn't
is
it?
it?
Yeah. C and then general.
But also, I mean, it's just saying in general and in the general commercial district.
Yeah. I mean, it's the name of the district that we're looking at. So, we had talked about paint colors, shall be subtle, neutral, and earth tone colors. Mechanical equipment shall be screened and shall not be visible from any right of way. That's fairly no-brainer. Fences shall be constructed of wood or match the materials used for the building. Robert suggested that at one of our sessions. No commercial building front shall remain unbroken, unpierced by a window, architectural element, entrance, or functional general access doorway for more than 50 feet. Everybody okay with that? Windows shall comprise no less than 10% and not more than 40% of each building's vertical wall area. I think that might have come from Duck, I believe.
Yeah.
Although I'm not quite sure Wings hits that 40%. Maybe they did it after that. No awning on any building which encroaches on a sidewalk or pedestrian walkway shall extend out from the building more than 2/3 the width of the sidewalk, nor shall it at any point be less than 8 feet above the sidewalk. I'm not sure. 8 feet on a tall building might look a little skimpy. I don't know.
You mean down low?
Yeah, I mean, the awning, if there's an awning, the width of the sidewalk, I get, but nor shall it at any point, oh, I'm
Be
sorry, yeah,
less
be
than.
less than,
Be
yeah. I misread it. Yeah,
Now,
less than.
if they hang little signs for the stores and it comes down below 8 feet, is that gonna,
Well, maybe we put, or any, somehow, I mean, that's a good point.
But that comes under signage, right?
Well, it could be an extension or, something that would hang, just like Ed said, below the canopy if they wanted to put the name of a business. I mean, you don't want it getting down in the 7-foot range, but easily someone could put a 1 foot tall sign
Yeah.
hanging on an
I would
awning.
expect it in front of the
Yeah.
shop?
We add a little piece there that says that anything, any signage or whatever has to be
Yeah, it shall comply with the 8
8
feet
minimum.
minimum. Does that make sense, Wes?
Yeah, so I'll just add, at the end, signage shall,
Be accommodated by the awning?
yeah, just say all signage must meet shall comply with the 8-foot requirement or something to that effect.
Is this just applicable to awnings or any projection?
Any what?
Projection.
Projection, yeah.
This was awning, and I'm assuming that would be either
A frame
a
structure.
temporary canvas awning or, like a parapet.
Well, that's kind of the question because, I mean, at the marketplace,
Yeah, I would
takes up
consider- yeah, I would
100%.
consider that an awning. Yeah.
that's why I'm asking, yeah.
It's what?
No, I would say this applies just to awnings.
Uh-huh.
And it wouldn't apply like the marketplace or
Yeah,
Silver
that's-
Crossing where you're walking underneath and the signs above. you.
Yeah.
Do we define that? Do we need to define awning then?
I thought that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, now, I think
Anything that's extended over the sidewalk.
no, would we say no temporary awning? Or,
Not with a new
Well,
construction.
yeah.
Let me ask a question though. If we're not concerned about a projection over 100% of the pedestrian walkway at like the marketplace, then where would this be a concern?
If the sidewalk's 8 feet wide and you hang the sign at 4 feet away from the building,
Right, but can a building be that close to the public sidewalk? Where you can have an awning overhanging right? So how does this kind of manifest itself?
I can't directly think on how the awning situation is, but there's several of them over at the marketplace that extend out. And as you're walking under the awnings, I don't think anybody's hanging signs on the awning extension that is horizontal to the ground. I mean, there's a framework in those awnings. And that's what you're talking about.
I'm
is
talking
hanging-
about awning being a fixed structure, not a temporary canvas type thing that will blow away in a blow. I mean, something that's there year
Well, then
round.
maybe we just need to just say with the awning, whether it's permanent or, they
Temporary.
temporary or not temporary, but I don't know, something that can roll in and out easily. I don't think we need to define awning. It could be one or the other. You just can't hang
Yeah.
something lower than 8 feet.
I guess, I don't know why we would care if it's over more than 2. I'll tell you, I mean, I would see this normally in a urban environment, you'd see this regulation where it's talking about a public sidewalk. I don't know if, personally, I care if it covers 100% of the width of a pedestrian walkway.
Yeah, and-
In a shopping center, I don't care.
I don't have a clue what that was, but at the time
Yeah.
we were picking from, several different scenarios in the towns that we had information on. I don't have a problem with it.
I agree. I don't think it's gonna happen on a sidewalk. but
No.
Pedestrian walkway.
Yeah.
Could be 100%, just like it is at the marketplace.
So then we would say, shall extend out from the building no more than the width of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And as far as signage, I mean, if it's underneath that, nobody's gonna see it. I mean, it's gonna be below eye level. So I don't understand how signs would be effective if it were
It's
below
when
the.
you're walking-
When
Usually
you're
it's
walking,
above
when
it.
you're walking on.
Well, they have those
Yeah.
at the marketplace. They have ones that are, if you're walking down the path, that are perpendicular under, which is accounted for in the sign ordinance.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I also have just a question for the crew. Would you like to have seen an awning or a rain cover extend from where the CVS is over to the new stores that are there? So that, you could walk on along there and it was more of a contiguous
Continuing.
experience.
It makes sense. I mean, I think it would look better.
I don't know
aesthetically,
if it
but-
would look better or not, but from a pedestrian experience, it would be much easier to go from shop to shop than walking out in the
With
rain.
an
They have a
awning,
small portico that's covered there. And the same thing with going on around to the other shops that are on the other side of the L. You have to go out in the rain.
They are under an awning.
Those are,
Mhm.
and so are the original
Yeah,
marketplace,
yeah.
but where they put the
The
new
new
buildings
stuff,
up.
yeah.
They did not continue that along there. And so if that's something that we would like to see, then maybe we should say awnings are required, or in that situation, from one shop to another.
Yeah. Good point.
Well, I mean, do we want to take a shot at saying that
If you start with.
all
awnings,
buildings,
You go with.
you got to go from one end to the other? You either have awnings, all or none. I
All or
mean,
none.
Well, and then that in the mixed use category, we had that if there are multiple buildings, they have to have a rain cover.
Yeah,
from
connecting the
building-
breezeways.
From building to building.
You don't have any for the rest
Yeah.
of the building.
Right, just in between.
I don't know. I mean, what would be the language in there as far as requiring,
Awnings would be encouraged, and if you're gonna use them, you use them for the whole structure.
Hmm. I'm not sure you're gonna get marshals to pay for an awning to go over.
none that may,
No, that shouldn't
That-
say.
yeah,
it,
that-
but, you know, If there's
Dragged
a,
across the
if
highway.
there's a 50% renovation at that point, you know,
I mean, I would honestly strike it and that it be something that when staff is meeting with an applicant or the board is meeting with an applicant on sketch plan review, maybe we remember this conversation and we're conscious about the fact that I just don't see the concern that it's intending to address.
well, the awning is intended for two purposes, to keep you dry when it's raining.
Oh, yeah.
And aesthetics. And I think they make sense, especially if your building is facing, to the southwest.
Right. But as it's written, we're not mandating them.
No, we're just saying that no awning on any building which encroaches the sidewalk shall extend out more, I mean, that, I'm with you. I'm not quite sure why we put the 2/3.
I mean, that's from the
But-
boardwalk. And,
Yeah.
That's Doug.
that's where that would apply. to me.
Well, I think if we kept that language in there and simply put that, and that's, Jan, what Ed's talking about. There's the awning, sidewalks under here, the sign. Anything that protrudes towards the sidewalk has to be a minimum of 8 feet. I don't know. I mean, whatever we want to say there. I think Wes could.
Yeah, I think you say any awnings and/or building projections overhanging a sidewalk or pedestrian walkway shall not be less than 8 feet above that.
Yeah, no part of the awning shall be. Does that make sense,
Yeah, no
Wes?
part is good.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be the whole length of this building?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's what we got over the marketplace. We got some with it, some without.
Sure,
So why not just say, you're gonna use an awning the whole length of whatever you're building. And then,
I don't have a problem with that either, because I think that it serves certainly, a safety standpoint. When it was raining hard, people were running and,
yeah,
if they can get under the awning, at least it's, a little bit safe waiting out a rainstorm instead of diving into a store.
yeah.
So do we want
It's
to,
a benefit to the consuming public.
Mhm.
It's also a question of whether you want what is now a strip center, basically. Whether you want that strip center to be broken up visually, which is what, Kohl's, is that the store that's there?
Marshall's?
Marshall's, whatever it is. It now has sort of an independent,
Yeah.
that it has its own
Yeah.
look, it's standing alone. And would we rather that be part of that contiguous shopping center? I think from an awning standpoint, it's much better for the public.
Well, what's our pleasure here? We're getting hung up on the awning.
Yeah.
Everybody in agreement that we should require a continuous awning
If
in
an awning,
commercial.
if an awning is used. If the guy's gonna, in his architectural rendering or whatever, in his plan, he says, I want this, but I want a little piece of awning here. No,
Yeah. Well, like the real estate company that's right in the corner there.
Yeah.
Used to be Fast Eddie's, right there. I think it's Keller Williams, isn't it?
yeah,
But they have an attractive facade.
Yeah.
And it's way different than anything else over there. I mean,
And their awnings are broken up, they're not continuous.
that's right.
Yeah.
So again, if you had a big, storefront and it was done nicely in the sense that we agreed on the architect when they submitted a site plan, and they have an awning over the front door where people can be let out and go in and then picked up, but then they have two nice windows, center offset that don't have
Yeah.
awnings. I mean, that's good too. So I'm not sure we
Well, I'm
need
thinking
contiguous awnings.
Marshall's they just got a ton of glass
Yeah.
in there. I mean, an awning would not work in the,
Because you're not going to get the light in the store.
well, and it wouldn't be continuous with what's there. You'd be putting an awning through the glass.
I think if we just leave everything alone and just put shall extend out from the building, leave out the 2/3 width of
Yeah.
the side and go to the sidewalk and keep it at 8 feet. At least
Mhm.
we're saying that we want it at a certain height.
Yeah.
and-
And once again, at sketch plan
yeah.
review, we
Exactly.
can,
But if you're gonna put hang signs on it, you gotta be up.
yeah, well, that, I think Wes, if you can put the language in there about the height of a hanging sign would be, would encompass that 8-foot minimum from the ground. I mean, if you put a sign up there, then you gotta lift your awning higher than the sign. I don't think it's gonna be a huge problem, but, I mean,
I don't think it's
A hanging
necessary.
sign.
I don't think it's necessary to
No.
dictate how high the sign should be.
No.
Nobody's gonna.
Nope,
not
find
really.
a
I mean,
sign that you're gonna hit your head on.
yeah,
So just so I understand, you all are in agreement that we're just striking 2/3 on line 11 on page 4
Yeah.
and leaving everything else?
yeah, it shall extend out from the building no more than the width of the sidewalk, right?
That's what
Should we just, is it just awnings or building projections?
that was my other question. No awnings or projections or building projections. Are you
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
comfortable with
I
that?
mean, that might encompass a trellis or something like that, I don't know.
No awning or any building projection.
Yeah, because you could put a trellis for aesthetics and
Like a pergola kind of thing.
pergola,
Yeah.
and bump it out.
Arbor.
Yeah, yeah, good catch there, Wes. Okay,
Can I ask a question about another one?
which one?
Paint colors. Are those intended to apply to signage?
Well, we have the signs.
Yeah, but the sign ordinance is all about height and duration. And
I just want to make sure they are not applicable to signage.
I would not think that they would, but I mean, if it's not in there, if it's not written, it's not implied. I
Until it is.
Yeah, once again, sketch plan review.
Right.
We can say the building paint colors or the structure paint
Yeah.
colors.
The what? Say that
The
again. Ron.
building paint colors,
Exterior
Shall
building,
we-
yeah.
yeah, exterior shall be subtle, neutral, blah, 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 and just not mention sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, some commercial things are gonna have their own colors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So page 3, number 1, line 40, just add exterior building to the beginning.
Yeah.
Exterior building.
Yeah. Okay. Number 7 is wall articulations for breaks in facade or roof line shall be designed not less than every 50 feet along the building facade. And that was just to add interest in, you know, rather than having one straight long shot, the ins and outs on those, or those articulations. I mean, I think that's got merit there. Every 50 feet popped up in, I know Duck and possibly Nag's Head had used 50 feet. And then, you know, once again, we could put an asterisk by 8 and say, see at sketch plan review.
Yeah.
Because the last word is to kill.
Mhm.
We sure like you to do it, and we're encouraging you to do it. I mean, I think it's worth certainly
Put it in
there.
yeah.
It's not an ordinance. It's got any teeth to it, but it's in there.
If we could go back to number 2 just briefly, mechanical equipment shall be screened. What about waste receptacles? Should that be someplace in that same? They should also be screened?
I think that's already a requirement in another section of the ordinance.
Yeah.
Dumpsters, yeah.
Dumpsters, yeah.
Yeah. Is it under utilities or it's in,
I want to say it's either in the landscaping requirements or somewhere else, but
in the commercial?
it would apply to commercial properties.
Right. Well, just double check that, but if for some reason it's not, then we
Yeah.
would need to add something to that effect, in item 2.
Yeah, I just thought it would go along with it because if you're talking about, screening mechanical, I thought of the waste receptacles also. I don't think it would hurt to be redundant if we do have it in another place.
If it's not in there, then it would say mechanical equipment and dumpsters, solid waste receptacles.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, if we should probably bring in that those screenings shall be constructed of wood or match the materials used for the building,
Yes.
just like in item 3.
Is this also where you start to discuss about food trucks that are parked alongside the building?
Does that make sense, Wes, to take I think that if a fence or a barrier was up, and I can think of one over there at Steamers, it's huge, but it's this ratty looking salt treat thing that's been around there since, the
Meridian
mid
42.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't match with anything. I mean, it's unsightly, but
Well, I
I
mean,
think that mechanical equipment, the screening of the mechanical equipment, especially on the ground, I don't know how you do it up on the top of a roof other than have a high, wall area up there, but anything that's on the ground should be treated with the same requirement that fences as far as being constructed of wood and match the materials used for the building.
Well, you could make this thing with block, right?
Hmm.
This screening with a block, right?
Eventually you gotta put some doors on it though.
Yeah, but instead of wood, which falls apart, blows over, they could use
Well, then
block and paint it the same color.
match the materials and the paint scheme or something like that. Then if you use block, you could paint the block the
Yeah,
color
that's
of the
what
building.
I'm-
Yeah,
Lasts a lot.
so. You getting all that, Wes? Kinda.
so I've heard colors and I've heard,
Well,
On the
I guess to
ground.
back up,
so,
the mechanical equipment located on the ground or at the ground level shall be screened and shall not be visible from any right of way. And furthermore, or however you want to wordsmith it, it shall be constructed of wood or match the material and or color scheme for the building. And that would be the mechanical equipment. And then fences shall be constructed of wood or match the materials used for the building. Everybody okay there?
Yeah.
mechanical equipment at ground level shall be screened and shall not be visible from any right of way and shall be constructed of wood or match the materials used for the building.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanical equipment at ground level?
Or thereabouts. I mean,
What about roof mounted equipment?
Then they're saying that it's not,
You can see it from, it says here, you can't see it from the right of way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that stuff that's mounted up there is down low. There's a false front, but
I agree. I think it should be screened no matter where it is.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
people just stick it out on
Right.
whatever they need to.
so take out at ground level,
They got what?
at ground level.
I think so.
Yeah.
Just mechanical.
yeah, mechanical equipment. Yeah,
Needs to be screened.
yeah.
Got it.
But with constructed of wood or match the materials of the fence of the building. Okay. Well, now
Did
I had talked to Wes earlier about where we plug in.
Excuse me one second, Mr.
Oh.
Chairman. I'm sorry. Did you all want to add one more that states low impact development techniques for stormwater mitigation or stormwater impacts to mitigate stormwater impacts are encouraged?
Yeah.
Would that be item 9?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Um,
Then I guess we start our discussion on what would potentially be item 10, which is in the staff report that Wes sent. About the ratios. If you can, Wes, if you can pull up that sketch where we can. Everybody got that? Just briefly, it's not the scale, obviously. And this is just round figure numbers. It's easy to almost do the calculations in your head, but I'm not that smart. Michael is, anyway, my example up on the screen is a 200,000 square foot parcel, which is roughly 4.6 acres. If you multiply that times 43,560. 2 units inside that parcel of 20,000 square feet in each unit. And then I just went down, and if it was under the total finished square footage, obviously one floor in each unit would give you 40,000 square feet of total finished space. And that finished space defined, Wes, would be
Living area, heated space.
heated living
yeah.
or habitable conditioned space, right? So in the most simple terms, with the ratio that we've got on the 4 locations that Wes has given us, Taco Bell, Southern Shores Crossing, Town Bank, and the Marketplace, the finished area or habitable area ratio for one floor, both units, is 0.2. If you look at the Marketplace, that comports to 0.20 as well, and that's on the ground. It's the biggest commercial property in town. So that's just something to compare with the Marketplace's finished area ratio. If you go to 2 floors in both units, that ratio doubles to 0.4. If you go to 3 floors, both units, that ratio triples to 0.6. So other scenarios would be to use combinations of, say, 1 floor at 20,000 square feet, and then the other building could be 3 floors. And so you would get different, you could use different combinations, but the ratio of the Marketplace is easy to see. It's built, we know what it looks like. Everybody shops over there. So the question is, do we want to try to pursue a ratio to keep the volume of the building in check? Michael, I'm going to get you to lead us off because you brought this up in November, and you were part of the discussion last week, so.
Yeah, I think, I don't know the right metric or the right number, but I think just looking at the project that was presented then and comparing it to other projects and trying to quantify what we can visualize. And I think this is a helpful exercise. I don't know if it requires a little bit more consideration, but I would say as long as we are confirming that this number is correct, the 0.2, and I'm fairly confident that it is, if we're talking from a design standpoint, setting a maximum acceptable limit of 0.3, I would be comfortable with that. But I would say this, because I've administered some of these design standards in the town of Nags Head, and I've seen them, elsewhere. The thing I worry about is, I don't have a huge worry, but unintended consequences. But I also worry about whether or not they're truly, they will truly bring about design goals and objectives of the town. And I'm fine with them. I'm fine with setting a floor area ratio, but I think it's an iterative process. And I would hope that maybe down the road, we have limited commercial property and we have limited commercial road frontage, but it is also very impactful in terms of our road frontage. It's our front door, back door on both ends. And I think there's a variety of things that could be addressed, not just design, but also, maximizing our commercial land, and not sacrificing design, addressing mobility, pedestrian mobility, vehicular mobility, aesthetics along the entire corridor, starting over here and going to the end of town or vice versa. And, I think for little effort, there could be a planning process that did that came back and looked at some of this with the right practitioners involved in that, whether that be, architects and engineers that can look at whether these work from a design standpoint, but also I want to make sure that we're not handicapping the development and redevelopment of property from a financial standpoint, and that we're coming up with standards that are reasonable and realistic. And so that's my only, but I think I think there's, all of this is related, and I think there's ways to ensure that, properties can successfully be developed and redeveloped in the town and consistent with our goals and objectives, and setting out what the town's goals and objectives are in a well-defined way. So that's what I would say. I know that was a long-winded answer, but
And I think rightly so, you addressed the concern in November that this project that we had reviewed was, double, almost triple the volume, the floor density area at the marketplace. And, Wes pulling these different buildings out, obviously Town Bank is 2 stories, but the ratio is 0.14. That's on a small footprint.
Yeah.
And they have excess property to the east of where the building and parking area is, but
Can I ask, some of these numbers aren't making sense.
Yeah.
So the building area on some is larger than the finished area.
yeah, the Taco Bell.
Well, that makes sense, but some cases the finished area is greater than the building area, which I'm trying to understand.
The porch?
Yeah, I'm thinking
Two
that.
stories. Southern Shores Crossing has 2 stories.
Duh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Town
only
Bank,
on
Town
one
Bank has
end.
2
Okay.
stories.
Yeah, Town Bank's 2 stories. And
That, thank you.
Southern Shores Crossing Steamers is the 2
What
stories.
about Taco Bell?
Taco Bell's 1 story.
Well, why is
Yeah, that's.
the building area almost over 2 times the finished area?
I've looked at that myself. They must have some sort of storage or something in there that's not heated,
Big-
not
big
enclosed.
drive-through.
I don't know. Oh, yeah. There's like
Like counting
the
a
walk-up
giant-
area where you order. There's like an overhang.
Yeah,
That is probably counted in the footprint. It's like a covered area that we, yeah.
I think we probably throw that one out as far as using it as a point of reference, because it's like only 0.06, because it does have such a small little finished area.
It's an
I don't think that would be representative of what we're trying to.
It's quite interesting that, at least I think of the Town Bank and Taco Bell as shoehorned into those spots.
If you look at the Town Bank, they have
have
a
a-
fair amount of
land.
property to the east that
Yeah,
they're
they
not
do.
utilizing.
That's right. But still, visually,
Yeah.
it looks like it's.
No, I mean,
it's a
obviously,
little Oversized. Same thing with the Taco Bell. I think it's really funny that it has such a low floor area ratio.
In looking and researching this, it seems like the towns and municipalities that have adopted this use the 3 as 0.3.
0.3.
0.3 as their standard. The ones that have adopted this, that's what they utilize.
Well, and we talked about this, you had made we talked on the phone about, we're not talking about residential, we're talking about commercial here, but the, compared to the residential, the maximum finished or conditioned space can only be 6,000 square feet. That is the limit. And a typical lot is 20,000 square feet. So if you divide 6,000 by 20,000 square feet, you get a ratio of 0.3.
3.
Say that again, the 6,000 is what?
The
Max
maximum
square.
conditioned square footage of a house in Southern Shores
Oh,
cannot
of a
exceed
residence.
6,000 square feet.
Of a resident.
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
just a
you're coming up with
comparative.
that 30%, right?
And then a typical lot's 20,000 square feet. So the ratio in that particular case, residential case, is 0.3.
So what
And so
about,
3 stories.
so what about these ADUs that are coming into the picture? Do they get added in or you can?
Well, that's residential. I mean, we're talking about
Oh,
commercial here. Yeah.
Well, it's-
However, along that line, we're going to get into, housing and affordable housing. And, it is a need and something that every township needs to be looking at seriously. And the only places that visually that would accommodate would be our marketplace and maybe Southern Shore Crossing by developing the upper level to some extent that still stayed within that 35-foot structure. And going along with what Mike is saying about not wanting to put a figure ratio that will prohibit that future development. To me, if it were done properly, that would be ideal. And even on Trinity, those office buildings, if we gave incentive to people who own those and are renting them, that if they were to further develop and keep within our scheme and have an upper floor, these people that need, low income housing or affordable housing, they can now walk, for food and stuff. And it's the great location. It's right here and it's on a commercial area.
Well, and that's why I'm suggesting that this be a first pass. And then, you know, I think it's one of the reasons that we should keep the door open to evaluating this further. One, we don't want to preclude anything. I don't think we want anything bad to happen now or less than desirable to happen now, but I think we need to further evaluate it to ensure that we can check all of the boxes of needs.
Well, I think that before, I mean, obviously, if you read, and I did, full disclosure, I did not read that whole 91 pages that you sent out.
I did,
But I skimmed it pretty good.
and I have the pages and
follow the-
marked as to
then
what
you-
we need to discuss here,
Well,
guys.
Did
But-
you
but-
follow all the links?
I'm being realistic about it, and I mean, sometimes to a fault, but, you know, it's got to come from the feds first, then it comes to the state, then it comes to the municipalities that want to participate and get grant money from the state or the feds. And I think eminently more important now is, and it may never occur. I mean, we just don't know if affordable housing will occur in Southern Shores.
It occurs daily.
But-
Affordable housing or less.
Affordable housing
Very
occurs
ratios.
daily.
And-
Affordable housing is housing which is no more expensive than 30% of a household's income.
Mm.
I live in affordable housing.
Mhm.
I couldn't buy my house now and it would be affordable.
But what is our role as a planning board? To me, the role of the planning board is to try to set policy on what we know. And what we know is that there are tracts of land that are owned by a couple of families that we have mentioned in these meetings that are certainly entitled to get the best use and money out of their property. And that means they can develop. Right now, we have no design standard for any kind of finished floor. They could, the example that is here could be stacked 3 stories tall. This doesn't impact the lot coverage, but each floor is, and it could be stacked 3 on top of each other. And we're going, man, the net result of that is they've taken 2 20,000 square foot buildings and turned it into 120,000 square feet of floor area. And just like Michael was concerned about that in November, I think that's what the planning board needs to be concerned about in the short run. I'm all about trying to find solutions for affordable housing, but I don't know if it's in our purview to do that.
Well, I look at it the other way.
I
I
mean,
think
it's-
we should be the proactive. The planning board should reach out to the community, and much like what all this was about, and assessing, you know, how can we go about doing affordable housing? And then you go and you look for the state funding and the federal funding, but you offer incentives to the people who own these properties and look at developing them into our standards that we are now working on. So aesthetically, it is what is acceptable Southern Shores. And we produce some affordable housing so that we don't have to, you know, have ADUs. Unfortunately, ADUs, the people who have them, they're renting them for the 4 or 5 months where they can make a ton of money. They're not interested in renting them year round because it's too much of a headache. And we're not
absolutely agree.
reaching the people that need the affordable housing with ADUs. What we need is a study of finding the proper aesthetic look and the proper location and giving incentives to say, hey, we want to do something and Southern Shores is going to take action. That's my feeling. I don't think we wait and have somebody bring us something that is all stacked and we say, oh no, and then start tearing it apart. Go the other way. You know, work with them to build something that is
Well,
acceptable.
So I don't disagree with you, but my suggestion is put something in place, but continue that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because that's exactly what I'm thinking. And I said, I mean, they had concerns before we ever got started. I mean, we're talking about affordable housing, but yet we're trying to limit the volume of what we're doing. But if somebody comes in here with a site plan next week or next month, or, in the fall, and they want to stack this on top of each other and maximize their property, that's going to happen a hell of a lot faster than us solving the affordable housing crisis here or anywhere else, because they're entitled to that. And it's our duty as a town to protect the citizens that live here for the possibility that someone could come in on a 20,000 or a 200,000 square foot parcel and have a ratio of 3 times what the marketplace has. The floor area ratio, 3 times what the marketplace has. Instead of 0.2, it goes to 0.6. And if that's what we want to do and kind of wait around and see how things shake out with affordable housing, the ball needs to be rolled. And Michael's, that was a good skim. I'm glad Jan read it, but I don't know. I think our obligation is to prevent something huge that has a lot more floor area density than we would like to see as a town. And then
We've done that.
moving forward in time, how do we change things to help the affordable housing?
I think we have to reach
situation.
out to the community now. I think, you talk with owners and real estate people and, how to develop what, we have in a situation that is
But
acceptable.
how do we not leave the door open for, massive floor area
So
development?
back to the floor area issue, a couple of things. One is, you said single-family home in this situation comes to a 0.3. That's a 0.3 with one level.
No, some are 2
No,
levels.
it could be 3 levels.
Yeah.
That house
Still
at the corner,
0.3?
that house at the
Are
corner.
you still
of-
at 0.3?
Yes.
It's on square footage of the house.
Yeah,
Check that. So the total square footage of the house,
yes. It's 6,000.
If that house at the corner of Chickahawk and Ocean Boulevard, the new flat top,
uh-huh,
that's 3 stories.
uh-huh,
If each story is 2,000 square feet,
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it is or it isn't.
right,
6,000 square feet is what they're entitled to put up there for living space, heated or habitable space. And if that lot's 20,000 square feet, I don't know if it is or it isn't, but it's
I'm
0.3.
confused. I thought we had 30% lot coverage.
No, this isn't about lot coverage.
Well,
But
in
you can
in a
still
sense,
have-
it is.
This example,
You can still have a 6,000 square foot house on 30% lot square footage.
Yes, I
yeah,
know.
as you're going
Or
up,
but what we're talking about is one floor, both units,
Mhm.
right? That's a 0.2,
like the marketplace is. It's
Uh-huh.
single floor everywhere.
right?
So take this example,
Mhm.
and let's say one of those buildings was 20,000 square feet on one floor, and the other was 10,000 square feet on one floor and 10,000 on the second floor. The FAR would still be the same.
Yes, the FAR would.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. The floor area ratio in this density issue that you brought up, or the volume issue, my biggest problem with it is contiguousness. It's not broken up. We have individual homes on 20,000 square foot lots in many cases. And in many cases, each of them is 3 stories tall, but they're split apart. And so we don't really see anything wrong with that. We don't think those, yeah, we can call them whatever we want to call them, but we're good with that. And so that's how I feel about this floor area ratio business as far as density and the bulk of it and the project that was presented. The biggest problem that I had with it was that it was not broken up. It was a long, continuous chunk that didn't allow light and air. It didn't allow, views, that kind of thing.
Kind of like the marketplace,
Kind of like the
Except-
marketplace.
except they could, if we had no ratio, they could stack 2 more floors
They
on
could
there.
stack 2 more floors.
Right. And they could stack 2 more floors. I don't care. But I think it would be better for us.
You would
if
like
we
that?
had- I wouldn't dislike it as much if there were gaps in that big volume of space. If they created spaces in between, breezeways on the first floor, maybe balconies or walkways or something like that on the second and third floor. It breaks it up enough that, we talk about a person's right to develop their land. Landowners, property owners have their key in our state legislation, and their rights are. And so we talk about not inhibiting them, but directing them. And so if you want to build it 3 stories tall, that's fine, but you've got to break it up in some way.
We currently inhibit them anyway with 60% lot coverage. That is currently going on. This is just another aspect of it.
This is adding to it.
Adding to it, yeah.
So what we were looking at, if all of these numbers were the same, was floor area ratio of 60%, is that right?
If you did 3 stories in that example right there on both buildings,
Well, my problem is not with those 2 buildings. My problem would be if those 2 buildings were one building.
that's why I left the gap when I drew it. I was thinking about you.
I mean, that is the other issue is
Because he said it in November. Yeah.
whether or not it's just a FAR issue or a maximum building size issue.
That's kind of how I feel about it, because the FAR, we're applying that same FAR all over town. And it seems like breaking it up would serve
Well,
the purpose that we're thinking.
the ratio, I think, would have a tendency to make different buildings that have different uses be different stories, which would add interest architecturally, whether or not they're connected by a breezeway or something like that.
No matter the use, it's going to have the same floor area ratio.
You could do 1 floor at 20,000 square feet and then do three floors at 20,000 square feet. So you've got 20,000 plus 60 would be 80,000 square 80,000 square feet. And that is like a 0.4 ratio to this example here. If you did 1 building, single floor, building to the right is 3 floors. So you've got 20,000 plus 60,000 is 80,000 square feet. Then using this as same example with the 200,000 square foot parcel, 80,000 square feet is a ratio of 0.4. Tony, you said what you had read was 0.3.
0.3 is the standard that municipalities and towns are leaning towards, 0.3.
If this person was going to develop that and they had a limit of 0.4, they'd build 1 big 2-story thing, and they'd have their 0.4. It'd be 1 big block, and that'd be the cheapest way to build it. They would not break that up because you got all the extra walls.
And they're not gonna put one story here and 3 stories here. They're gonna put one big old 2-story thing
One block.
It could be 3 stories.
or 3 stories.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if we limited them to 40,
it-
they're not going to necessarily break the building up to achieve that.
Can I make a suggestion? That we add a standard that says sites with multiple businesses, tenants, and/or occupants are encouraged to utilize multiple buildings of varying heights and design rather than a singular building.
Yes.
Encouraged.
Yeah, I don't think you can mandate it right now.
Multiple tenants,
Well, I just,
kind of key.
I think that the volume that we're trying to put on a piece of property is something that needs to be thought about and presented.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it's both,
Yeah.
but I think Robert's got a good point. I think it is both, though.
But if you're in this example, if those two 20,000 square foot units are pretty close to the 60% lot coverage, say, then lot coverage doesn't mean a thing because you can stack another floor
Yes.
and another floor on top of it. I mean, it is literally like taking the marketplace and putting 2 more floors on it. And you can do that right now. You could stack 2
It's still
more
35
floors.
feet if you get 2 more floors up.
Pardon?
It's still 35 feet
Still
if there's 2
35.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. You could get 2 more floors on the marketplace and lot coverage would not come into play,
Well, what about
period, because you're stacking on top.
the human factor?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
The parking requirements.
You've got-
kind of limits on-
You got that, but you got so many people using one floor area,
Yeah, the parking would.
retail, the retail,
Mhm.
and then you've got residential supposedly coming in on top. Now, that's a whole different scenario of use and abuse and carrying
They do that in
capacity
town center.
Density.
They've done
that
But-
affects everybody.
a Nice looking.
Density of population.
Yeah, density of population.
This is density of mass.
Yeah.
Right,
It's not
This
gonna be
is-
unsightly.
but you can't really say if it's certain ratio for the first floor, and then the other two have a much higher.
Well, that would allow you to pick and choose how you use that ratio. I mean, just what Michael was saying about, encouraging different heights and different uses. Well, I think that by having a ratio that we could agree on, it would force some diversity in the building use. You could do single story here, 2 stories here, 3 here, 1 here. I don't know, but, to be able to just have 3 stacked floors and it,
But you've seen, there's town centers who've done it very nicely.
yeah,
It looks.
we're way behind the curve
It
on all
looks.
that. It would have to
You
be-
go to Virginia Beach Town
Yeah.
Center, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's shopping and they have, condos that are 2 levels, bedrooms,
Sure, yeah,
living areas.
it's
And it
mixed
looks
use group
very nice.
development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So Michael, in the example that you read, would you read it again?
Sites with multiple businesses, tenants, and/or occupants are encouraged to utilize multiple buildings of varying heights and design rather than a singular building.
And that comment going along with a floor area ratio standard makes sense to me. Just a floor area standard. Anyway, I'm not sure that we would achieve necessarily the desired results.
Well, you could certainly, we could certainly come to some sort of agreement for a floor area ratio, just based on what we know, Marketplace being the prime example.
So that would be a commercial floor area ratio.
Yeah, commercial.
Right, but mixed use, group development or group development, all commercial, or all residential for that matter, in a commercial, this would be
I mean,
in the
if you
commercial
think about
zone,
it,
it would be a commercial
two
design
times
standard.
what the marketplace has from a floor area.
But
True,
I just think
it's
that
broken up.
if we
Have that here.
don't protect ourselves and in the future, someone comes forward with a site plan
That's
That-
6.60.
that could be 0.60.
Right.
We saw one that was close to 0.60.
How about 0.35 compromise?
I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to limit, like Southern Shores Crossing, if they want to do affordable housing and go 2 stories on the far end, the opposite end of Steamers, or somehow, do something creative in there. They've got plenty of room. Right now, they're only at 0.12.
Yeah, I just think some number should be considered, whether it's 3 or 3.5. I think it's proactive to do this at this point.
Let me
And-
ask a question. It does not limit us if we were to have a developer that came to us with a sketch plan of what they wanted to do that had breaks in the development, and he was 0.398 instead of 3.5. In other words, he could ask for,
I would say we agree on the limit, and they adhere to our ordinance, not the other way around.
Well, and they
Unless
could,
for a variance.
they could propose a variance,
Yeah,
or they could propose a
vote
text
for a
amendment,
variance,
and we
yeah.
could,
text
Variance is a
amendment
hardship. That's
would
hard
be-
to do.
And that would encompass, if the Marketplace wanted to do some 2-story stuff over there, it would give them some leeway.
Mhm.
But if we said, oh, we don't want to do it any more than, 0.25, then
Yeah,
it's
too low.
yeah, it's too low.
0.35.
yeah, and so I would say it is well supported. There's rationale for the number. There's a basis for the number. But I would still suggest that there be some larger effort to fine tune this for a variety of reasons, and to, look at other potential benefits, co-benefits of all of this, not just design and aesthetic goals and protecting the town's character and vision, but addressing other issues, mobility and traffic, and ensuring that we're deriving as much tax revenue as we realistically can from commercial development in town. That it's viable, that these properties can continue to operate the way they are. And I think that's a double-sided coin. And that we can also address potentially housing opportunities in those areas.
Well, that can certainly develop over time.
Yes.
But in the short run,
Yep.
this is our obligation to the people that we serve,
Nope.
is to protect ourselves for going to 0.6.
Yeah, and I think we're saying the same thing. I'm fine with it going forward in the short term, but my request is that it not just stop there.
Well, how would you all feel about putting what you've read twice as far as what we would encourage, and then we'd have to put a definition of a couple of definitions in there. I don't think, would you be able to scooch this into the ZTA tonight and give it to town council?
Yeah, just like the other changes that have been made tonight, you all agree on. And, as long as I have I'll get Michael, if he doesn't mind, to send me what he read twice earlier. That'll save us some time. And then, so I guess we would insert a new number 10,
Right.
and it would say something to the effect of maximum floor area ratio shall not exceed 0.35.
And then define it.
I would create a
In
definition.
definitions.
In 36-57, there would be a definition for floor area ratio.
Or, I mean, we were kind of staying away from the floor area and calling it finished area.
That's the other question.
FAR is actually a term, floor area.
Yeah, that's a term.
And
yeah.
we,
You want to say finished area?
yeah, I would prefer, and Michael and Wes and I both said, we don't need to call it
No,
FAR. We'll just say it's finished
finished area.
area to land area. So you've got to define what finished area is, Wes, and also what land area, which I'm assuming would be the net land
Yeah.
area.
So, let me just straight. If someone wanted to do some height additions to Southern Shores Crossing, or whatever, the land area would be what?
They're going up, so they're not messing with the footprint. The
Right,
footprint's
so the
there.
footprint that you're using is gonna be the footprint of the construction.
Yeah, so if
There
you'd be
is
able
no-
to put multiple.
Well, there would be,
stories.
you would use the land area of the total site.
Yeah.
So you would calculate, you know,
Yeah, it would
their
be-
proposed addition, the total square footage,
Mhm.
floor area of the on the entire site, does it still comply
yeah,
with the FAR?
the building area over at Southern Shores Crossing is about 24,676 feet. So you use that,
Right,
and then you just, rather than the floor area ratio would, the finished area would bump up.
Yeah.
Because you'd be adding a story here or there.
Yeah.
But they're low over there. I mean,
Yeah.
they're at 0.12. They could easily add multiple areas where there's more floors if they had parking. I mean, parking's going to be a
we got
consideration.
plenty of parking over there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you start adding on more stuff. Yeah, seemingly they have, but by our regulation, maybe not.
So just going back to it one more time, we're going to insert a new standard that states the finished area ratio for all buildings shall not exceed 0.35, period, and then add Mr. Zenner's language after that.
Mhm.
And going back to a comment you just made, you're saying that it should apply to net acreage as we currently define it?
Net.
So so in section 36-57, I'm going to create three new definitions, one for land area, one for finished area, and then one for finished area ratio. And you want me to use net acreage as it's currently defined in section 36-57.
Correct.
Simple.
Would you, third time, please?
I've written it down, I'm going to give it to
I
Wes.
know you have, that's the only reason.
Sites with multiple businesses, tenants, and/or occupants are encouraged to utilize multiple buildings, of varying heights and design, rather than a singular building.
And so the encouraged part, you think we can tease all that out in the site plan review,
Sketch plan.
Sketch plan review.
sketch plan?
I mean, the challenge will be, it's not a shall. So it's not mandatory. So ultimately, if an applicant says they don't wish to do it, then they wouldn't have to do it.
I like a shall.
I don't think we get shall in there, do we?
Why not?
Because you'd have to define what it is. you're
Well,
talking
we said you must break it up. We didn't say how many pieces. We didn't say if it has to be multiple floors. They can come up with two buildings, like you said, 1 story and 1 3-story, and we said, that's good.
I think the only concern I would have is that, let's say it's a building with 2 tenants. So now are they mandated to break that up into 2 buildings? As it's written.
Depends on how big the property is.
Well, and, right.
But then you would have to put in anything over a certain amount of square footage would then have to be broken up and put in. And you're dictating too much to
I don't
There's
think-
specifics of
I don't think, I think I think if it's a development that is, has multiple tenants, as you said, and has a, floor area, a total finished square feet of greater than 100,000 or 50,000 or 60,000, then it must be broken up.
Well, there you go. And that's where you would want to put in there a specific square footage, and then it has to be broken.
Yeah, I think what it's asking, what it's wanting then is what's the maximum individual building size
Right.
that needs to be broken up.
Right.
And
I don't know. if
I don't know what I
That would
wouldn't.
be a big can of worms that
Yeah.
might not be able to be easily solved. I would say if we can get shall in there but preface it with, all new development
Well,
shall encompass whatever, those items that all.
We're just putting a placeholder at this point.
Hmm?
So we're just putting a placeholder at this point. So leave it at 0.35 and leave it at encouraged. And if we can figure out something that's more,
But how about, if it's existing renovation, then they're not gonna be able to adhere to any of what Michael read. But if it's new, then we have some leeway if it is shall. What do you think, Wes? Is shall a possibility in what Michael has written?
If you put the-
It's a possibility, but I'd rather look into it a little bit more
Yeah.
to see
I
the
think
potential
we could
impacts.
Leave it at the way it is right now, and then later on.
I think encouraging right now is the best way to leave
Yeah.
it at the moment.
Encourage.
And
It's about one step up from better than nothing.
Yeah.
Really.
no, I automatically go to the concern of, oh gee, what if somebody wants to come build a grocery store somewhere? It's like, oh, that's gonna be big. Of course, that's not multiple tenants necessarily, but, that's what I'm thinking of, is a store that has to be that big,
Mhm.
that really can't be broken up.
I would tell you this, it's an evaluation factor, in my opinion, for a discretionary permit. So if we have a site plan application, there may not be a lot that you can do about it. But if there's another permit application tied to that, where there is discretion, then I think this is a factor in evaluating whether or not that's appropriate.
And it would work under a special use permit.
Correct, that's
But
right.
not a right permit.
Correct.
So, the special use permit that we had before us, you could use that language in there, but if someone wanted to do strictly commercial, and we can't count on mixed use group development for being able to put a special use out there.
Right. No.
I still like shall, if there's any way that we can work that, you shall, we're not defining what it is, but we're just saying that you've got to do it rather than
Yeah.
agree to attempt to do it.
I think it, without additional evaluation, I think it creates too many unknown consequences, not even unintended consequences, but unknown consequences.
Too many variables.
Too many
for-
variables.
For the development.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but hoping that, I just hate that the last three things in the ZTA have encouraged them. Item 8, item 9, item 10, all
I'm
have,
going to have, if it helps, I have one more suggested
yeah.
requirement standard that I forgot to bring up earlier that's not encouraged, but we can go to that now, or do you want to, are you all finished with them? Someone suggested, Ms. Donna Creef, she watched the last meeting where we talked about commercial design standards, and she brought up a very good point that I wanted to bring up with you all. She had said that during her tenure with Dare County, and they were talking about, I believe they talked about commercial design standards. She said that we had a retail store proposed down in Hatteras that wanted to have the entrance designed as a gigantic shark mouth. It never came to be, but you may want to consider some sort of prohibition on such features. There's one retail store in Rodanthe that has a replica of a lighthouse as part of their store, which isn't quite as bad as a shark, but still something to think about. So as a result of that suggestion, which I thought was a good suggestion,
Those are coastal design embellishments,
well,
and we're encouraging those, Les.
I came up with
Add visual interest.
architectural features that resemble animals or objects, including but not limited to lighthouses, castles, and pirate ships are prohibited.
How about ice cream cones and lollipops?
Yeah, lollipop.
I'm serious.
What about
We're hanging
nags?
it out there.
That's why I
Why
said
not?
included but not limited to, because it could just go on and on and on.
Colors,
If it's an object, the building is shaped like an object or has an architectural feature like an animal or object.
spaceship.
So what leeway do we have then when we get a sketch design and they have to put that on the sketch that they send to us? And we say, sorry, this is not acceptable.
If it's, this doesn't say are not encouraged, this says they are prohibited.
Yeah. This isn't permissive. It's prohibited. But
Okay, let's just say we missed something. And I'm just asking, how much, clout do we have when we get a sketch review and we see something on it and we say, sorry, this is not acceptable?
If the ordinance says that it's encouraged, you can say that you don't like it, but you can't deny it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
but things that are in the ordinance that they don't want to do, obviously, we can force their hand. But yeah, I mean, I like
Right.
putting that in there, but I'm serious. We could get couple of big lollipops would be at the entranceway of the next, Sugar Kingdom Palace or what have you.
I'd say that's an object.
That's an object. Yeah, is that what, and that's in there, right?
Animals are objects.
Let's do it.
There you go.
Everybody in
Wait, can you
agreement
read
with
that again? Can you read it again?
Architectural features that resemble animals or objects, including but not limited to lighthouses, castles, and pirate ships are prohibited.
I mean, it's well intentioned, but I'm just worried, just for your sake, the administration of that is, and it's just, it begs for, I mean, everything's an object. Yeah,
So
I understand where it's coming from, but I don't know.
how about if it just said resemble animals or lighthouses, castles, and pirate ships?
I mean, but what if you had a building that they, had some motifs on the side of the building that were, well done, stylized, I don't know, a nag's head or something. And that's prohibited because of that?
Would that not be a sign?
Huh?
Would that not be a sign? I'm talking about an actual architectural feature.
Yeah. Built into
So it's
the permanent structure.
This is like a facade would
Mhm.
be, or the entrance around the door, you've got a shark mouth with teeth.
Mhm.
I'd go
The doors are in the middle.
Architectural
We
features.
can
have
come
to be
back, we can revisit this later, but it's,
I don't see anything wrong with putting it in there.
Pre-approved.
Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with putting it in there with that language.
well, I mean, I
And
did,
if we got to defend it,
Yeah.
then we either roll up and say, whoops, or, I mean, it's worth a try. I
Yeah,
would say,
I think it's a good idea.
with leaving objects in it, or take out objects and leave it at animals.
Yeah,
lighthouses.
objects would be a tough thing. What is an object,
A lollipop.
So features that resemble animals, lighthouses, castles, and pirate ships are prohibited.
Yeah.
We're talking, it says architectural features, so if it's a sign or
I don't know if I would say
building
not
elements.
necessarily architectural features. I would say building
Building elements.
elements.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that better as well.
Yeah, I just worry, there could be somebody, let's say they decide to incorporate a fence around a courtyard. That's an architectural element, and it's some stylized something of an animal. I don't know that we would be opposed to that or should be.
But it wouldn't be part of a permanent part of the building.
It wouldn't be a building element, but it could be an architectural feature is the distinct difference, I think.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, are we squared away on, where would you put that in those, we're going to have 10 items up until then.
That's number 11.
Number
Okay.
11.
So we're not stopping on them or
You-
encouraged.
You would have actually had one more because you had the low impact development, stormwater management.
No, that was
Yeah,
number 9.
Nine
Oh,
is
okay.
low,
Nine,
nine will be
11.
low impact development, 10 is finished area, and 11 is the building element prohibition.
And then definitions
And
added back.
what about the site, multiple businesses breaking up the building?
I had that with number 10.
Okay, to
Yeah.
incorporate it together.
I think I had the finished area ratio and the language that you put together and all in.
Combined.
All in number 10.
Okay.
And if you can work a shall in there in his language, go for it.
Can I move to recommend approval with those changes as well as the change to the tree height
Yep.
and with the added request, suggestion that this is, for informational purposes, this is a first pass, and we would encourage town council to consider some larger study evaluation of our commercial properties in corridor.
I think your motion is way too long, but I
Somebody
don't-
can second it.
I don't-
Somebody can second it.
I don't, well, can you make it a little bit more concise? That's it.
No, it can fail.
I think town council will go over this no matter what we put in.
Hang on, well, yeah, that's a given, but, and they should.
Yeah.
But,
I think
there's a motion
I
on
think
the
to
floor.
Jan's point, this should be a first pass, and we would encourage them to open the door for further evaluation.
That's your motion. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
We're looking at changes that we just discussed.
No, we're talking about his motion. Is there a second on Michael's motion?
Sure, I second it.
Okay. Discussion?
So we're putting this up so it'll get batted down?
No,
No,
why would it
I
get batted
don't.
down?
I don't think.
It's a
we need to
request.
Say that this is the first pass. I mean, anybody with half a wit of knowledge that knows what's going on in this town knows that everything we do up here is kind of the first pass. So,
That's fine.
I mean,
Then you should
it
agree
is what
with
it
it.
is. Now, I agree with the first part of it. I just don't agree with the,
It's not binding.
well,
It's a request.
okay. More discussion?
Let's vote.
All in favor of Michael's motion, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now you got to put it out there exactly what the motion was because it was lengthy.
Sure. I mean, it's recorded.
It's recorded. We can go back and listen to it and put it in writing.
Okay. Well, nothing against the long motion, but I think that basically the obligation of town council to look at this as it first passed. I mean, whether we say it or not. But I don't want to discount what we've been talking about for the last hour either.
No,
I don't think that was the case.
No.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Wes to update us on the latest ADU legislation, the status of it?
Well, let's plow through this rest of this meeting. I mean, that,
Well, the next item was affordable housing, and that's a big, big issue. And I think ADUs has made some, maybe I missed the meeting when it was discussed.
well, following the agenda, Robert, we really need to do that. And if we want to get into any discussion like that, probably needs to come up at member comments.
Okay.
And then my question is, do you want to start us off with this? Or, I mean, this is, you brought this forward, Michael, and we certainly want to honor, your wishes and be glad to take a break and come back and get on it.
yeah, if people need to take a break, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
It won't, I don't know that it'll take too long, but it could be a long conversation. I don't know. It's really up to y'all.
Well, 7:00 now. I certainly wouldn't mind taking a 5-minute break, and we'll, how about this? We'll set about 15 minutes, which isn't nearly enough, and then put it back on the agenda for next month.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what everyone decides, that's fine.
Or we can, I mean, I'm amenable to whatever the rest of the board members want to do.
Yeah, no, I don't have any type of presentation or anything. I'm just going to share my opinion and what I think, what I would hope we, as, this board, if not the town, should do, consider. I think the ADU legislation is relevant. But yeah, if we need to take a break, we can do that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, please.
We get a good board. Yep. Yes, sir. Okay. Bring this meeting back to order. Okay. Michael, if you will start us off on
Sure.
your affordable housing info that you got for us.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, I can actually go back to the minutes that we had in our packet to remind myself what I even asked for, but, back at the March meeting, I'd referenced, of course, that Dare County has convened and is holding affordable housing housing task force meetings. They don't wish to use the word affordable. It's a bad word, but like I said, to be clear, affordable housing means housing that is no more than 30% of a household's income, regardless of income segment. So if you pay less than 30% of your income on housing, then congratulations, you live in affordable housing. But nonetheless, I don't think this was really intended to be a discussion related necessarily to the task force and what they're doing. It's more a recognition of the housing issues that we have in the county. The lack, in my opinion, a lack of housing which is affordable. And our role as a town in whatever way we can, small, large, in the middle, of being able to help meet for that need, because we can't necessarily, in my opinion, sit back and rely on other jurisdictions to solve for our need. And I believe we do have a need in our town. I mean, I think we all should have to agree with that when our tax money is being used to purchase housing to be used for affordable housing for town employees. And hopefully everyone knows what I'm talking about. I think we can all probably anecdotally reference experiences, whether it's been with a contractor or with a business, healthcare, you name it, where we've had difficulty getting responsiveness or an appointment or services that we believe were cost effective, cost efficient. And those are directly related to housing issues. I gave you this. You asked who had read this. I haven't read it. And the reason why is because it was intended to show you how I think we should be approaching the problem. That there are multiple different ways to approach the problem, but there's no silver bullet. And I don't pretend to think that we as a town can see, multiple hundreds of units apartment complexes. That's just not feasible. And are we as Southern Shores going to solve the housing problem for Dare County? No. But we can perhaps make some incremental strides to meet for that housing need in the town. My opinion. I think there are some things that we can do to allow for that, encourage it, support housing affordability and the availability of affordable housing. I think there's things that we can do that can make housing that people are in today more affordable to them. I think that there's things that we can do to ensure that we have a multi-generational town, that people can downsize within our town with reasonable degree. I don't suggest that I don't like to start with solutions, because I think what you need to start with is everyone agreeing what the problem is and doing that in a quantitative way, doing it in a qualitative way. And I think that's what I would hope for, is that we have some education sessions as a town to talk about how the problem manifests itself in the town. Get people to air their concerns and provide knowledge and expertise to help address some of the maybe misconceptions and miseducation about what affordable housing is. but go through that process and evaluate what the strategies are that work for the town. Not, well, this strategy worked for them, so let's try that. No, we figure out what the strategies are that work for the town, what's feasible, what is something that we can achieve. There may be low-hanging fruit, like ADUs, where, my opinion, I think we should allow for them, and meaning that we should allow for them with separate kitchen facilities, which is what we don't do today. But with the caveat that if we do allow for them, before we allow for them, we should pursue special legislation that allows us to not, to restrict their occupancy to long-term occupants only. That they not be allowed to be used for short-term occupancy, because I think that's only going to exacerbate the problem. I think there's opportunities for redevelopment in town and to gain some units in properties where maybe they're not developed to the degree that they could be developed. We don't want them to be overdeveloped outside of the character with what our vision is for the town, but going through a process to establish what the town's vision is with respect to housing or whatever, and finding goals or finding strategies and actions that we can take to address that need. So that was really my opinion. I don't necessarily know how it goes forward, but I do sit here and think about some of the things we talk about, and sometimes, and I've been doing this work for 25 years, so I'm not laying any blame at anyone's feet beyond myself, but there are decisions made in planning and zoning that only increase the cost of housing. And I think we all have to acknowledge that and be conscious about that. And this playbook does talk about ways to mitigate for that. I did read it a little bit. So I think, again, I'm glad that the county is doing what they're doing, but the county's effort, even though it's well represented by the town, I appreciate the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem representing the town, and I think they're doing a good job. But I don't know that anything's going to come out of that is going to dictate what the town does. And I think we as a town need to be proactive and take a little bit of leadership on this. I'm sure I'm entirely wrong that this is something that the majority of people in town think we should embark on and study, but I'm happy to put it out there. So that's all I wanted to say.
Jan?
Well, I thought this was homework, guys, so I read it all. And I came with all my stickies and marked all the pages and was ready to ask all the questions.
Let's go. You got that answer man next door to you.
No,
But seriously, you have some concerns, and if you want to highlight some of them, I mean, certainly we need to take that into consideration. I mean,
Well, I
we're
think
discussing this.
Right, I think the gist of it all is very much what, like you're saying, Andy, in the sense that we need to be proactive. We need to address what we want Southern Shores to ultimately be like in 20 years. Let it be, a community that people still want to come to. We are a residential community. We want to remain a residential community, and we want it to look like a residential community. So how do you get affordable housing and still keep the simplistic look of what we, all have come here for and strive to keep? So I think by going out to the vendors, the people who own the land, the people who do this and say, okay, how can we work with you to incorporate the ideas of Southern Shore and get affordable housing, because we do need it. So each page, I mean, there's just a myriad of information in here about communities. Are we one of these frontier cities where we're a sparsely populated area, isolated from big populated? Yeah. Okay, so is there special money there? Are there grants? The other thing says absence of water systems. Well, what about absence of sewer systems? I mean, is that something too that needs to be incorporated in this? So I think, yeah, this needs to be studied and we need to be proactive. I mean, that was my feeling. If I go through all these pages, it all amounts to the same thing of what I'm saying. That's all.
Do you think that it's something that, and this is for you too, Michael, is it something that at a planning board level would be the best approach? Or is it something that we need to lean obviously on town council?
Oh, I agree. It should go, and it should be mayors. It should be the mayors of the whole island, all the way from Corolla down to Hatteras. We did beach nourishment together. This needs to be, a consortium of people to say, okay, are we going to work together? And do we need a sewer system? Is that our number one priority? And then, say, okay, now we can put multiple families together on a lot and we're not, hindering our water systems and we're not, but we got to start talking about it because we keep pushing it aside. And unfortunately, we're still going down this road and we're not getting any further. I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, I mean,
No, and I think to Andy's question, I think, no, I don't think it's just a planning board initiative. I think it's a town initiative. And I think it should be not a planning board initiative, not a town council initiative, but it should be a town initiative collectively. I'll be, what I told the chair of the Dare County Board of Commissioners and county manager and copied the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem on was that they should pursue a process for describing just what I did in terms of presenting what the problem is, getting people to understand what the issue is, what the problem is, what affordable housing is, what the options are. And I would suggest that we do that on the town level, that we have a plan, a strategy to explore the problem and explore the solutions. That would be my suggestion. And, not to necessarily do it and do it in a way where we're, supported by professionals that do this work, because I think that is lacking.
anybody down on this end want to jump in?
Now, does the state have that talent pool available?
I mean, no, because the Republican legislature did away with the State Office of Planning several years ago. So no, they don't. They have the School of Government, which has, and I think it's what the DFI, Development Finance Institute, that provided some information to the Dare County Board. And I think they did provide some good information. If you've not looked at it, they did a study that established what, and I think it was 2019, 2020, that did establish what the housing need was, where the gap was. And I ran some of those numbers actually today. I didn't, I asked ChatGPT to do it, so it could be wrong. But I just looked at the real estate listings, and the cheapest property in Southern Shores right now, does anyone want to guess what it is? At least on realtor.com?
With a house.
Cheapest, yes, improved property, the sale price.
275.
430.
275.
How
No.
about 600 something?
How about 525, 252? All right. And I didn't note the bedrooms and that sort of thing. So how much do you think you would have to make income wise annually for that household, for that to be considered affordable? 106,500. So, which is great if you can get it, but we also have, housing needs countywide, townwide that make less income than that. So I also asked, pulled some census numbers. Our median household income. So our median household income is 112,371. Our median gross rent is and these are 2020 census. Our median gross rent is 1,809. 33.6% of our housing units are valued at between 300,000 and 500,000, 499,999. 54.1% are valued at 500,000 to 999,999. We have 2,506 housing units, but only 1,202 are occupied full-time. So obviously that makes sense. And I asked, quickly, what some of the markers were for affordability. And it basically indicated that, let's see, I'm trying to pull up some of these takeaways. We basically have no potential for low-income households. Those are less than households with 37,000 and less in annual income. There's no expected inventory. For moderate income households, 37,000 to 75,000 household income. Median gross rent is the upper limit of affordability. Likely cost burdened if renting or buying homes above 400,000. So there's nothing on the market for that income group anyway. High income households, 75,000 annual income and greater. They can afford median rent and houses in the 300,000 to 500,000 range comfortably. But again, there's nothing on the market. Higher end houses, 500,000 and greater, may require higher incomes to avoid being cost burdened. So even, and to their credit, the Housing Task Force talked about this because of the work that was done. There's segments of the population that are still considered high income households, 75,000 and greater, up to 105,000 of that, which would be affordable for the cheapest house on the market today, that can't buy here in town. So you have a household that has 2 teachers, they can't live in Southern Shores.
We had an oncologist, came here 3 times and is not answering return call now because they can't find housing. We have a cardiologist that came here twice. We have a new GM that we put in. We lost our GM at Duck Woods. He had a heart attack and he was in a rental. And the country club took over the rental. The new GM went in it and he's been looking now for 8 months and can't find a house.
Yeah, I think we could do nothing. It'll probably work out, right?
But we,
I mean,
as in
Collective we.
the town. not
The
we.
collective we.
Collective.
Yeah, I mean,
Dare County we.
yeah. Well, the wheels turn slow on stuff like this, we know. I mean, extremely slow. And when you get grant money with conditions that are put on it by someone that doesn't own up to putting the conditions on it, I mean, it is a really hard concept to say, how can we do this for our town? I mean, what are our options right here in Southern Shores?
I think we have to explore those.
Well, I mean, we did before you came on, and it was in the form of the Pledger Daycare Center.
That was my first meeting.
It was.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, therein, now it's the county's
Yep.
situation, not ours. But at the same time, using that as an example, what would you say we could do?
That's a perfect example. So that was J1 dormitory housing.
But take the J1 students,
Mm-hmm.
take it as year-round affordable housing.
How do you mean?
How could you rehab that piece of property? The way she wanted to do it
Mhm.
was just basically put some partitions in and she was way out of bounds as far as what the septic limit would take and.
Yeah, but we were considering it as a use permit. Those are things that would have been worked out or not worked out when it's submitted for their building code, for building permits.
But should we relax our standard? No, what I'm asking is, should we relax our standard? Like, and I didn't completely scan it, but it did have things in there where you pull back on government regulation in order to further the affordable housing project. Should we as a town at the time have pulled back from our ordinance?
On what part?
Septic.
That's not ours to control. They
Well,
would have had to
true,
have met
true,
that
true,
anyway.
yeah, county.
Yeah, so
Did
let me, I think, I don't want to, let's not create a hypothetical when there doesn't need to be one created. That proposal, as she came forward, was for dormitory-based housing for J1
Right.
employees. Just because our focus is on affordable housing doesn't mean that we shouldn't explore other opportunities like that. There are 4,000, at least pre-COVID, and you could easily check what the numbers are. There were over 4,000 J1 students coming to Dare County every season. That was the high, and they're here all year long. How much of an impact does that make on our housing, on affordable housing for seasonal employees, when all of those J1 students are competing for the same housing that everyone else is competing for?
And they stack. And I know this because
Yes.
we had a young lady who worked for Kitty Hawk Heights, and she was up behind the food line in an apartment building just around Corolla. And it was a 2-bedroom. And I want to say they had at least 6 girls in a 2-bedroom. And the sewer you could smell when you drove up to pick her up. And that is what's going on. And Kitty Hawk Heights advertised, we have housing for you.
Well, it's about affordable and decent housing too. And I've, as someone involved in enforcement, I've seen and heard of those issues. And it's unfortunate that it's okay. And my point is that if, let's say, there's an effort to develop dormitory housing for J1 students, that relieves the affordable housing issue. And there are folks interested in providing that here, but it's to this point, or at least in my roles I've been in before, it's a non-starter. But there's opportunity there and interest there. And all of these solutions and opportunities should be on the table and open for discussion to find out what's reasonable and what's workable. But, you know, the stigma of affordable housing, you know, people's perceptions of it being high-rise housing or Section 8 housing or low-income housing, not that those aren't needed, but we need to all not be afraid of the terminology and lean into it a little bit more and explain what it is. I mean, like I said, I live in affordable housing because I know that the cost of my housing is less than 30% of my household income. And I also know that there's others on my street that also are in affordable housing because depending on when they purchase the property, but they're also, you know, can they maintain their housing? Does it reach a point where it becomes unaffordable to them because they may be on a fixed income? And do they have an opportunity to live in the town if they need to downsize or change? Or can you have a multi-generational home? You know, can my mother-in-law come and live in an ADU in the backyard that has a kitchen that makes it easier for her to live separately? No. I mean, if I could build a 5-bedroom house or I could build a 4-bedroom house in an ADU, what's the difference?
Robert, we're on ADUs right now. I mean, good segue to your concern or what?
Well, as it is now, I live in Chickahock and the Chickahock HOA is grappling with that issue. And we know that the legislature intends to always honor HOAs as a particular contract that people went into willingly. You know, in my own house, it's way more house than we need. The house is way too big for just two people. But I don't want to leave. I mean, I want to stay in that location. I love that location. I love the people. So, you know, what are the options? Maybe a mother-in-law situation or something like that, multi-generational.
Not in Chickahawk.
Not in Chickahawk, that's right. That's what they
Well, I
say.
mean, you know, there's a case of the covenants superseding the ordinance.
Oh, certainly, certainly.
And, you know, when we first started down the road of ADUs, the legislature hadn't gotten in strong to regulate them and mandate that municipalities and towns all over North Carolina had to provide for ADU. But we all know that 90% of ADUs here in Dare County are not necessarily used for low-income housing. They are to make money. And, I mean, how do you tell someone, no, you can use this ADU, but it's gotta be long-term rental, not short-term rental. I mean, that's property rights that you're trying to dig in on.
We
It's
regulate
just-
property rights all the time.
We're doing it now by prohibiting an ADU.
That's true.
And it's coming. ADUs are coming. If they don't pass it in this legislature, if the Senate doesn't take it up,
Well,
I'll be surprised.
I
But
still.
if it's not this year, it'll be next year.
I still think that there's some room to operate as a town to manage aesthetically what they should look like, rather than having an ADU at the street, like the one that I brought to y'all on Beech Tree Lane. If you want to go out there and imagine a string of ADUs up and down Beech Tree and in your neighborhood, and you like that,
Well, they're
So
limiting
be it.
already, you saw in the paper, the Virginia pilot, well, Norfolk, 1%. They're going into neighborhoods and they're limiting what percentage can be ADUs. And they're doing it.
Well, and I would tell you this, and I'm sure this document talks about this, where ADUs, they allow for these other more affordable housing opportunities, but they also allow for people that are purchasing property to maybe purchase property that they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford because of that income stream. And I think, yes, I understand that point, but I think unfortunately in our market, they only exacerbate affordable housing issues. And so I think there's a well-reasoned reason to restrict them. But like I said, I don't think this conversation is about the viability of any solution. I think it was intended mainly to say, we have a problem and we as a town should be proactive in terms of addressing it. And through that process, come up with solutions that work for us as a town. And it may be only an incremental approach, that we can only move the needle a little bit, but any little bit is going to help. And I think we have to do something to ensure that, our quality of life here remains sustainable, because I don't think it is long-term without addressing this issue.
So Michael, since ADUs are not currently being, required from the state legislature, if we as a town decided that we would allow ADUs, but only if they were for long-term rentals in the town, can we do that?
I don't think so. I don't think currently it would be legal for us to restrict tenancy.
But
Not even if it was zoned, if it was part of the zoning code?
I mean, maybe especially because of that. I just don't know. It's a legal question. I think it's something that if, we pursue that, it's worth a discussion. I think it would be much cleaner to try to pursue special legislation that allowed us to make that restriction. Maybe the alternative to that is allowing ADUs but regulating short-term rentals, which we have some latitude to do. But again, I think looking at what those options are and weighing what is legal and what is viable is important to do.
That kind of a request, I think, from the to the legislature would need to be the output of the town conversation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I brought it up in a public comment at one of the task force meetings where they were meeting with our senators and commented that we should be tracking that legislation. And frankly, that for Dare County's interest in other communities that are similarly positioned, that there should be an allowance to restrict the tenancy of ADUs. Otherwise, it would, for our market, would exacerbate the problem. I followed up with an email. I haven't heard anything back. They weren't tracking the legislation. They didn't understand how short-term rentals had any effect on affordable housing, was a statement made.
I don't believe that.
Yes, sir.
From the affordable, from the Dare County Housing Task Force.
No, from our state senator.
Oh, I see.
So I was also told that the task force would likely not be commenting on that legislation because it would not carry a unanimous opinion about it because of representatives on the task force. So
Wes, do you know if it's on the short
session, it is.
Short session.
It's eligible, but we were just talking.
It hasn't changed from last year.
No, it's at the Rules Committee
Yeah.
with the Senate. It passed the House.
Well, there's a real good chance it's going to pass. And what I think, from our standpoint, we've got to accept what the legislature does to us. But we can regulate a little bit of how an ADU is positioned on the lot. It sounds like they're going to narrow down the side yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet was what was on there before.
It's 5.
Is it 5?
5. It was
Yeah.
5 feet.
Well,
The resolution that the House passed, the Senate made.
anyway, there's nothing in there that prohibits language for the proximity of the ADU to the house. It can be, and that's something that we can work on. This doesn't have anything to do with affordable housing or ADUs, flooding more people into smaller spaces. It is, we can limit how close that ADU is to the house and make it aesthetically more pleasing.
Meaning
Still gonna
it
have
needs
to-
to be closer.
Yes. Go right by the far end of Beech Tree Trail. There's one right out at the street. And that probably is a 15-foot setback on the sideline and 25 feet at the street. And it basically, it's an Airbnb. It's listed on the Airbnb site. And, I guarantee you, the people in this town do not like them.
Well,
Except
most
for the people
places,
that own them.
well, most places, they require that accessory structures, ADUs included, be located behind the principal dwelling.
But I think we can work on it when it finally settles out in the legislature. We will be able to figure out what minimal steps we can make to make it more palatable. Is about all we can do.
Well, as long as we are doing that to make it palatable, but not make it
Yes.
impossible.
It's not contributing to to the affordable housing situation, one iota in Southern Shores.
How do you mean?
It doesn't encompass affordable housing because 90% of everybody that has an ADU is doing it for income, not housing a medical person to care for, a sick spouse or a mother-in-law or a kid that just can't find his
Well-
way. It is for income.
Well, but still, that's reducing the cost presumably of the household to afford that house perhaps. And if that's 90%, then 10% are provided for housing, right? So
Well,
that does provide for some of it.
If we set a limit in Southern Shores, which we have,
Limits.
septic capacity.
Oh, you sure?
Then that kind of takes care of a little bit of it. But, I mean, do we relax the limit on septic capacity so that we get more people here? Is that what we want to do? No. We want to maintain what we have, and we want to try the best we can to be good stewards to a situation that we will never solve at this level. And I'm being frank about it. It's the way I feel.
I appreciate that.
And
I don't,
I don't know is
We can initiate,
We-
can't solve it.
we can advocate for it. And I would suggest if you would be willing to be our representative and get on the agenda for for a town council meeting, it would be great to let town council know that, we have taken up this conversation and we would certainly implore them to look at ways that we can plug in. I mean, ultimately, it's got to be them.
yeah, sure. I mean, I'm happy to talk to him if the board wants that.
But I mean, I don't think they would have a problem with it at all. I mean, just I don't know what would be the proper channel for Michael to speak to town council.
Collectively, it would have to be at a town council meeting.
Right, yeah. I mean, as far as getting on the agenda, what would,
We could probably set an agenda item for that.
would you be willing to do that, Michael?
If the board wants me to speak on their behalf, I don't know what I'm saying on your behalf though.
When's your budget presentation, Cliff?
Already did.
You already did it?
He's
Public
efficient.
hearing will be June. the June
Oh, the
council
public
meeting.
hearing. Oh, great. Then we can make a recommendation that we add money to the budget to have someone facilitate these meetings, a professional person. Got any extra money?
So when is that meeting again, the public hearing?
June 4th.
June 4th.
Could you do it then?
Probably.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to establish an agenda. But
Yeah.
have
We're
a-
getting a little ahead of ourselves. We need to,
Yeah.
Council doesn't know anything about this, and I don't know that I'm privileged to put an item on the agenda for the planning board, kind of the way we're going about this.
Well, what would you suggest?
A motion that y'all, I mean, you're asking him to go speak.
Right, I mean, it would be by motion.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like a public comment to me, because
Yes and no. I mean, it
what is
should-
it you're going to ask for? What is it you're going to, you're just putting it out there that this is something we need to continue to talk about?
No, I think we want to put it out there that there has to be a committee started. There has to be some resolution that there's going to be, people that will.
So it's an ask. You're just going to make an ask.
Hey, that lady came before you all and got balloons taken care of relatively quickly. I think that, a planning board member should certainly have some sway in getting on the agenda rather than just a public comment time. Whenever that might
So
be.
you're asking me to put this,
As chairman, I'm asking you to,
I would, excuse me, I would suggest that you all make a recommendation and designate Michael as the speaker to
Yeah.
speak at an upcoming town council meeting to relay,
Request
we would request.
a study committee.
I will
Yeah.
make that recommendation in the form of a motion.
And I second.
And Jan
So
seconds
just
it.
to, just to clarify, what is it you're recommending?
That the planning board has given unanimous consent for Mr. Zenner to make a small presentation to the town council at some date. Well, I don't know if we can put the date on it, but
At an upcoming council meeting?
either,
That's much better.
either June or July,
Very good.
town council meeting. And maybe you guys can work it out with Michael. But everybody okay with that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you all.
I don't think it was a second.
Who- Jan seconded the motion.
Yes.
She seconded, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Getting late, folks, quarter to 8. Anybody want to keep rolling or there was something about, I didn't see it, but Wes did. Bitcoin, is that something we need to take up at a
I was-
future meeting
I
or?
was just suggesting that we add it to the list of uses that we do not permit in this town. Because there is legislation, I know the state of Arkansas and several other states prohibit towns from limiting Bitcoin mining operations. And I know the city of Greenville recently has enacted legislation about it because they are huge noise emitters.
Mhm.
People that have these things show up in their backyards on a commercial piece of property that is just a big shed, basically, that sucks up electricity and water. And I can't imagine it coming here because they go places where the utilities are inexpensive and land is inexpensive typically. However, there are foreign investors that are building these all over the place.
What do they call it?
Bitcoin coining operations.
Mines.
I keep thinking one day I'm going to read something that makes sense about Bitcoin.
I agree.
Even my kids can't tell me about it, but I don't know. I mean, if it's something that you can send
I'm
out
just saying,
to
add it to the list right under, new,
Bitcoin mining,
yes.
I mean, it's a prohibited use in the commercial district, just like crematoriums.
Yes.
Yeah. Tattoo parlors, we could
Yeah.
just,
Imagine
we
if
could
it were being
just add
used.
it.
I'm good to say, let's make a motion right now and do it.
Thank you.
Make the motion.
I can't, I'm not.
Oh,
logged in.
I would have to bring it as a ZTA.
yeah.
So if you all are, by consensus, are requesting that that be put into a form of a ZTA, I can bring that forward.
Yeah.
Add it, yeah.
Just add it to the list of prohibited uses.
Like I say, I can't
Is
imagine.
everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
By unanimous consent, Wes, we
We're ahead of the game.
we deputize you. So at that point, we're going to roll down, that was quick. We're going to roll down to planning board member comments. I think we've about hit that. I'll go down the list and come back.
I don't have any other comments.
I just have one thing, very quickly. I went to the meeting at the country club with North Carolina and the bridge, the latest thing on the bridge. And just as a side note, I thought it was an interesting thing. When they did this study, besides hurricane evacuation, et cetera, they also said they looked into service people. It would increase the opportunity for service people because the bridge would then they could live in Currituck
Yeah.
and they could come over. And just as a side note to what was discussed earlier, it's 5 years right now is the projected time.
When they start.
No, if everything goes, it's all been approved. They've won the lawsuits And
Right.
if now they're waiting for approval from like Corps of Engineers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's 10 different places that have to approve it, 10 different organizations.
Only 5 years?
Yeah. And they said they're hoping by the end of 2025, I think it was December, I don't remember the date, they might begin the bridge.
Wow.
Because once the lawsuits were settled, it's just the other. But just as a side note, I just wanted to bring up about the service industry. I thought it was, that was part of their study, actually. That's all.
Jan? Michael?
No, said enough.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Wes. Lot width, dead, DOA.
It was tabled at the last town council meeting, so I
Yeah.
do not know when it's coming back up again.
No direction from the town on that.
No, sir.
Okay. All right, announcements?
The next meeting is scheduled, next regular meeting is scheduled for June 17th. I can put together, I'll most likely be bringing a ZTA. If you all recall, town council directed staff to bring some modernizing amendments in the ZTAs, which we did, you all considered, I think, 2 meetings ago. We might be bringing some more amendments that we recommend similar to that. And we can include the Bitcoin, I guess.
Yeah, the Bitcoin and what we talked about with commercial design standards tonight. I mean, all the ratio stuff will be in there.
That's not going to be what's coming back to you all. That's going to be going to council.
Right.
That'll go
In
to
the
council.
form of a ZTA.
And so the changes you all brought up tonight are going to
Correct.
go into ZTA you all
Yeah.
consider, but we'll be bringing another ZTA back to you all at the next meeting, most likely.
Right, okay. All
And
right.
that's all.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Hey, I'll second that one.
Ed seconds, all in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.